Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to build an AI image generator where you can just enter the title of the image and then it's going to generate an image that fits the styling and the theme that you define in your application. Kind of like this. So in the backend, I defined the theme to be gaming. So when I enter something like werewolves and then hit generate image, it will show me something like that. And if I don't like the image, I can generate it one more time and then it's going to show me a different one. And then if I type in dragon, it will show me this. So the image is very simple and it fits the theme of gaming. And that's what we're going to build today. And in today's tutorial, we're going to use React in the front end, act as our UI. And then obviously we're going to use Bedrock to help us generate the image. And then an extra feature that we're going to have is that after we like the picture, finalize it, after we click the button, we're able to save that to an S3 bucket. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so right now I'm on the homepage of the AWS console. So the first thing that we have to do is that we have to request access to the AI model that we're going to use to generate the image. And we're going to do that on Bedrock. So let me show you how to do that. So go to Bedrock and then under model access on the left side here, the model that we're going to use today is from Stability AI, and they only have one model available on AWS, and that's the one that we're going to use. So I already have access to it already, so that I don't need to request access anymore. But if this is your first time, you need to click on it and then request model access. It's going to take a few minutes. And right now, let's write out our React app. Okay, so right now I have my terminal open an empty folder called tutorial, and we're going to create a React app within this directory. So we're going to do npx create React app and then type in your app name. I'm just gonna call it AI image gen. Hit enter. Type in yes. Okay, so seems like the app is done being created. It creates the new directory for us called AI image gen. So right now let's use VS Code to open this directory up and then we can start coding. Okay, so right now I have VS Code open up the project folder that we just created. And before we do anything, let's open up the terminal and then start the app to make sure that everything is working first. So type in npm start. Okay, so it seems like the app is running fine now. That means the basic setup is running correctly. And now let's go back to VS Code and modify that with our own content. So let's stop it and then go to our source folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete everything and then we're going to write everything from scratch. Okay, so the app.js file is where we define how our website looks like. But before we do anything, let's install the few modules that we're going to need in this tutorial. So the first thing that we need to do is the Bedrock runtime module. So do npm install Bedrock. Okay, so that is done. And then the second one that we're going to install is S3 because we need to use that to upload the image to S3. And then the third one that we're going to install is UUID because we are going to name our image with the unique name. Okay, cool. So all the modules are installed and now let's start coding. Okay, so first thing first, before we do anything with the app.js file, we're going to define a different component that is going to host our image that is flexible and portable just so that you can reuse it for other projects as well. So let's go back to source, create a new file called image from base64.js, and this can be a very simple component. We're going to call it image from base64. That is a function. We're going to take in base64 stream for the image. If it's not available, we just call it generated image. And here we're going to do a check on the input. If that's not defined, we're going to return null. Otherwise, we're going to return this image tag. Okay, this is the source. Alternative is alternative. There shouldn't be a comma here. And then lastly, we're going to do a style on this. Max width 100%. The height auto should be a column. Okay, that's done. And we just need to export this. Alright, so we are done with this. Now we can use it in our app.js file. Alright, so in here, first thing first, we're going to do some import first. Okay, so this is all the imports that we need for the project. And then now we're going to define some constants. The first one is the AWS region. We're going to use ES1. Make sure that this is the region that you have all your AWS stuff in. And then we're going to define the AI model ID. And remember, we said that we're going to use stability. So let's get the model ID from AWS. So go back to Bedrock, model catalog. And then in the search here, we're going to type in stability. And that's the one that we're going to use. So click on it. And in here, you can see that this is the model ID. So copy that, go back to VS Code and paste it here. And then the next one is we defined our S3 bucket just so that we can save our image to it. So go back to the AWS console, enter S3. So I already have a S3 bucket created for this before. It's just a regular S3 bucket. You can create one yourself pretty easily. But since I already have one from before, so I'm just going to copy this, paste it here. Okay, and then next we're going to define our AWS clients. So the first one is the Bedrock client. We're just going to call it Bedrock maybe. Bedrock runtime client. And then region, it's the AWS region. And then credentials. We're going to define that later. But let's leave it empty for now. And then the next one is S3. Same thing here. Okay, so now let's define our app. So a few variables that we need to define on the app here. The first one is the title, because we need the user to enter the title for the image. So we're just gonna call it title and then set title. Use state. The second one is our image stream. We're just gonna call it base64. The third one is Boolean to indicate if it should be loading or not. So loading, initialize it as false. And then the next one is the error message that we may have, and we're going to show it to the customer or the user. Okay, that is done. And then next, we're going to define our page layout for the website. So we're going to do this. We're going to define a div that includes a h1 tag. That's going to be our website title. We're just going to call it AI image generator. That's good enough. And then next, we're going to have a text area. The value of that is going to be our title. And then on change, we're just gonna set the title to be whatever the user inputs, and we're gonna take it in like this. Just take whatever the value is. And then what if it doesn't have anything in the beginning? We're gonna have a placeholder for it. Enter your image title here, And then how many rows do we want? Maybe just one, but you can make it bigger if you want to. Okay, so what else do we need? We need 2 buttons. What we're going to say for the buttons. So we're going to check if it's loading or not. If it's loading, we're going to call it generating. Otherwise, we're going to call it generate image. That's the label of the button. And then for the button, when the user clicks on it, we're going to call a method to handle the request, generate image. We're going to define this method later on after we finish the front end code. And then we should disable that in the beginning. So if it's loading or if the title doesn't have anything, we're going to disable the button, because if the user doesn't have any input for the title, it's not going to generate. So we're going to disable that. Let's put some margin for this, a little bit margin in between. So that's one button. And then we have another button that we need to define, which is for saving it to S3. We just call it save image for the button. And same thing here with some styling. On click, we're gonna call save to S3. We're gonna define this function later too, so don't worry about it. That should be within the bracket here. And then we should disable that if we did not have any image generated for us. Maybe we should wrap this whole thing in a div. Okay. All right, next, what we're gonna show on the bottom is if there's an error, we're gonna show the error. Otherwise, we're going to show the image, and we're going to use our image from base64 component here, but only if it exists. We're going to define our input as base64, which is the image stream that we got from Bedrock. And then let's add a little bit styling to it. So we're going to do width as, let's do 500 pixel, and then, no margin. Okay, that is done for the UI. So now let's define these 2 functions here. One is generate image, the other one is save to S3. Okay, so let's define the first one first. Generate image is an async function. If the title doesn't have anything, we're not going to do anything to it. Otherwise, we're going to set loading to be true because we are calling Bedrock at the moment. And then we don't have any errors yet. And then we're going to reset the image. And then we're going to define everything in the try catch block. Okay, now we're going to define our prompt, and we're going to use the title as part of our prompt, but we need to define our own theme or styling of the image that we want. So before this tutorial, I already have the prompt written out that defines how the image should look like, and then we just take in the title as the additional information for the image generation. So I'm going to copy and paste it. So prompt is equal to, okay, so what I said was generate a game title, which is a gaming theme that says whatever the title is, and the word title must be at the center of the image, and the title should be fun, colorful, cartoon-like styles, and blah 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 other things. But obviously you can define your theme with your own design and interest. So I'm just gonna let you define your own theme here, but this is just mine. And then we're gonna define our Bedrock command. So model ID is our AM model ID that we defined here. Content type, application JSON, except same thing, application JSON, and then our body, which is our detail, which we need to stringify our object. Text prompts, text, which is just our prompt. CFG scale, we give it 10. So what this means is that it's telling the model how strictly you want the image to obtain or to follow what the prompt is. The higher the number, the more strictly it follows the prompt. 10 is a good number for us. And then the number of steps, 30. I think that's pretty good. And then next, we're gonna use the Bedrock client to call this. Call response equal to Bedrock send command. And we need to do an await here because it's a async function. And then we're gonna extract the response body from it. We're gonna use JSON parse text decoder. We're gonna decode the response body. Now we're ready to extract the image stream from the response body. And now we can set our base64 variable. If we're successfully getting it, we're gonna set the variable. Otherwise, we're gonna set the error to be no image return from Bedrock or something like that. And then for the errors handling, if we get an error, we cancel log it out, and then we're gonna set the error to be that. And then finally, we're gonna set loading to be false because we finish everything, whether it's successful or not. Okay, so that's everything for the generate image method. The next thing that we're gonna define is the saved S3. So similar to the other one, we're gonna define this here too. Saved S3. It's an in async method too. So if we successfully got the stream, or if we not successfully got the stream, we're just gonna not do anything. Otherwise, we're gonna save it. So we first define our file name. We're gonna save it as PNG, and that is just a unique ID, a string. And then we're gonna do the same thing, try catch. Same thing here, command equal to put object command. Bucket is S3 bucket name that we defined earlier. Key, which is the file name. And then body. Alright, we need to define the body first. Let's do it here. Let's get our blob away. Okay, so that's how we convert this image stream into a blob object here, and we just pass that in as our body. Content type, obviously it's an image. We're gonna save it as a PNG file. Okay, that is done. So now let's just save it. And then let's just alert saying that it's saved successfully. If we have an error, cancel that, log it out. Failed to save image to S3, and then set the error so they can show it to the user. Alright, so that is done. So before we actually test the app, there's one more thing that we need to configure in the S3 bucket, which is to allow our app to call it or to save an object to it. So let's go back to the AWS console. Click into the S3 bucket that we're going to save image to. Click on permissions. Scroll all the way to the bottom. And in here, we're going to click edit. So for the cross-origin resources sharing, we're gonna paste this here. So for our testing, we're just gonna host it on localhost. But if you have a real website, you need to enter your real website URL here. But this is good for us. Hit save. Okay, so that is done. So now let's go back to VS Code and test our app. npm start. It's loading with the new content. Okay, cool. Something is showing up, but it doesn't look good. So let's go back and do some basic CSS to make it look a little bit better. So go to our app.cs. Remember we have this from before. I didn't delete that purposely. We can reuse that. And then the next one, let's do some CSS on the text area. Maybe 400 pixel. Font size 14 pixel. Border radius 4 pixel. And then for our buttons, background color, let's choose this. And then text color, let's do white. Padding, let's do 10 pixel and 20 pixel. Font size 18 pixel. Border, none. Border radius 4 pixel. Cursor, pointer. Transition, let's do background color to be 0.2 seconds ease. Okay, so that should be good. So let's in our app use those CSS. So the main one, class name, app. So just center everything. But we need to first import it first. Okay, so that should be done. So let's go back here. Whoa, the button doesn't look good. So let's change that up a little bit. Okay, that should look better. Okay, all right, now it looks pretty good. Okay, so there's actually one more thing that we need to do before we can actually test it, which is the AWS credential. So since we are hosting our app in our local machine, it doesn't have the IAM role and stuff to gain access to the AWS services yet. So we actually have to use our secret access key and secret access to access our AWS services. But if you host it on an EC2 or something like that, you can just configure an IAM role. But for the demo purposes, we're going to use the secret access key. So in the app here, we're going to define one more constant. Alright, I'm just gonna copy and paste mine, but you should generate yours. And then we just use it here. Okay, cool. Now let's go back to the website and test it out. So let's say that I type in werewolves. Hey, that's werewolf. Oh, it doesn't look good, so I want to generate a different one. And okay, that looks good. And now let's say that dragon. It generates the image with dragons, even though it's different images, but the theme looks very similar because we defined it to be like that. So now we have the image. Let's save it to our S3. There's an error. Okay, so after some digging, I finally found out what the problem was when we tried to save the image to S3. It was because how we are defining the blob here. So instead of doing everything in one go, we should separate it. We first get the rest from the fetch here, and then we define the blob from the rest, and then we got the array buffer from the blob here, and then finally we get the uint8 array from the buffer, and then for the body we're going to use the this array here instead. So that should work. So let's test it out. Dragon. Okay, that looks good. So we're going to save the image. So our image saved to S3 successfully. So now let's go back to our S3 bucket. Click into it. And now we can see the image here. We saw two here because I tested out before when I tried to fix the problem. But yeah, so everything's working fine. I think this is a pretty cool project where you can call our AI model to generate an image that matches with your defined theme. And then we can save the image to the S3 bucket after we are done. So this is it for today's tutorial. I hope you learned something helpful today. And if you liked today's video, I hope you can give it a thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next video.